Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to TheStreet Live. I'm Jeff Marks, Senior Portfolio Analyst at Action Alerts Plus, standing live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with Jim Cramer. Jim, September 17th, it's been a day that you've been keying on, but before we get to that, it's also quad witching day. A lot of futures and options all expire today. Just as a teaching lesson, what does this day mean? I know there's a lot of volume, heavy volume.
A lot of volatility, but typically the 17th is the toughest because when I surveyed people down here today, all they know is that they have the least view of what could happen ever, and yet it's going to be the most volume. So there are a lot of people on pins and needles here because they simply cannot get a read on it, which means that when you have something that's that crucial and you don't know, I think it's a recipe to sit in your hands.
All right, and let's dive back into that September 17th date. That's a date that Larry Williams pointed out to you, looked at the charts, and you've almost called it as a self-fulfilling prophecy. A lot of selling ahead of the time. But now that we're at September 17th, what do you think going forward?
Larry, because of this. Larry was saying, Jim, you've been saying this thing over and over and over again, and you've actually had an impact in getting people out. So now Larry says that you're going to get a buy signal earlier than you thought. The sentiment numbers, 20% bull, the lowest since 2000, which is incredible. So what we're up against are people who anticipated this. Look, it's not hard. You just look at the calendar. You see this down. And, with Larry saying that the sell-off may not be as deep as we thought, simply because it's already started, then I think we're looking for, look, if it's up today, no. But maybe next week we could see something favorable by the end of the week because we've pulled this thing in. Remember, the first couple weeks of October is still weaker, but we're going to get to a bottom quicker, if only just because, this Larry is saying this, only just because we fell faster. I think that this is a terrible week for the market. So it's anticipating this downturn. The negativity is anticipating the downturn, which means that we are probably done selling for us. I think we might be done selling.
So what's that mean, Jim? Next time we see a half percentage point, full percentage point decline in the S&P 500, maybe start doing some nibbling, keep some cash on the sidelines, but continue to put it to work as the market goes lower.
There was a key House committee that did not go along with the idea of making it so that the government would negotiate hard, Medicare would negotiate hard against the drug stocks. That should have led to a rally. But I think people are still not misinterpreting that the government may not be able to regulate, maybe not be able to do what they want. If you go back to 1992, the government tried to do this, and when it failed, you had a remarkable rally in the drug stocks. So I'm keen on the drug stocks. I know people have written off Bristol Myers. I think that's a very big mistake. I think that writing off AbbVie is a very big mistake. Looking for more names in that area may be actually prudent.
Yeah, those stocks both trade at a very big discount to the S&P 500. You mentioned some drug stocks. Pfizer's obviously going to be, and Moderna, they're going to be in focus today as the FDA Advisory Committee meets today. They're discussing whether or not a third booster is appropriate for people over the age of 16. What type of market impact could this potentially have in either direction if they do approve or if they say we need more data?
Well, I think if they do approve for north of 65, that would just confirm what the most recent data out of the UK said, which is that if you're older than 65, the effectiveness goes down to 65% on 20 weeks, which would mean that people who got vaccinated January, February have to go get a third. If you have AstraZeneca, go see your doctor. But I do think that the FDA and the CDC both rule on it, and both have been remarkably terrible and opaque. So I think I see the strong case made by Pfizer. I have Dr. Topol on tonight on Mad Money, is one of my arbiters. But the FDA has been irresponsible. The CDC has been incredibly irresponsible. And a lot of what people think it is because they're worried that that there won't be enough vaccines for overseas. That's not true. The government already has enough vaccines. And they're also worried about the social implications. Well, wait a second. Why would you start getting a vaccine if you know that it doesn't really work after 2 times? So there's a lot of optics that the FDA cares more about, I think, than people they're trying to help.
All right, we got a lot of talk about the government and government agencies today. So also the Fed has come under fire recently. They're reviewing their ethics following some of the stock trading by some of the federal officials. Now, with the Fed increasingly coming under scrutiny with their policy, timing of taper, raising interest rates. Does this latest ethics review, does it matter at all with next week's FOMC meeting?
It's become something that is a sideshow that will die down. I handled the money of the St. Louis Fed president when I was at Goldman Sachs, and it was always interesting. I showed him some corporate bonds. I showed him actually the equivalent of commercial paper for Ford Motor, which is paying about 100 basis points above treasuries. And he was insulted and said, "Who do you think I am? I'm a Fed official. We can only buy cash. That's all we can do. And don't ever show me anything again. That's the way it is." So I was surprised to see that things had morphed to the point where important Fed people were trading when in the 80s, it was very clear that whatever rules there were, don't trade, don't own. So these guys seem very off the reservation to me, even though I like both of them very much.
All right, Jim, earlier in the show, you mentioned just traders don't have a lot of visibility right now. And one of those reasons, perhaps, could be under uncertain tax policy. We're still seeing more chatter around the potential for capital gains, that tax rate to be increased. So how much of a headwind do you think this could be to markets, especially tech? That's where a lot of those capital gains are.
It does feel to me that this is one of the reasons why that September 17th sell-off has legs, at least until the middle of next week. That's why I don't think you just go in and buy ahead of it. Now, let's take the stock of Merck. It's a good company. Merck goes down pretty much every day. Bristol's been down 11 out of 12 days. Well, these are all tax code. Okay, there's nothing really happening. They're all tax code. So at a certain point, at what point do you say, well, the tax code is in the stocks? For Bristol, I think it's 59, but I do see the worry, and it's it is no coincidence that these stories are coming up just in this period, which when the market's weak, because the market is weak right about now. We see proposals out of Washington that are very stark and negative and jarring. And listen, remember Trump, for all his so-called pro-capitalism, he came down very hard on the states that voted against him with the change in salt tax. So I do believe that this is a period of uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds sell. But that's why we have such negative. That's why sentiment's so low. So remember, I think that September 17th will play out, but you'll have to cover faster than you would normally if you're a trader because of the negativity anticipating for the first time. This is again from Larry Williams, who's saying this. Yeah, I mean, people are the most negative they've been in a long time. Now they're not negative for Thermo Fisher, by the way, up 27 points.
Yeah, I guess that part of the healthcare aspect, a lot of that is very strong.
Doximity. Thermo Fisher, I'm sure Illumina. These are
genetics, vaccine work.
Yeah, because it's staying away from the majors, and the money does stay in the sector, but moves away from the majors.
Yeah, Thermo Fisher, what a great compounder that's been. Abbott Labs is in there as well.
I mean, there's a lot of situations like PayPal where I finally said to you, I said, look, I don't care that we sold it. We have to get back in. I felt that way about Danner. Made a lot of money in Danner, made a lot of money in Thermo Fisher, and then took the profit, thought we were being greedy. And turned out to be stocks for the ages.
Yeah, well, let's talk about another stock that has been a very strong performer over the past year. That's Ford. Yesterday, they announced they're increasing their investment in the new F-150 Lightning by $250 million, and they're trying to get that production rate up to 80,000 by 2023 on a run rate. So, Jim, I heard you talk earlier how, look, we all know about the chip shortage, and hopefully that won't be an issue in 2023. But could battery, is that something to watch too?
Battery chemistry problem that comes out of China that could be an issue. So you've got chip shortage and battery issues in terms of the formulation for the battery. That said, Ford's never seen this kind of demand for a product. And that's why I continue to think that these are issues that by 2022 will be resolved, and that Ford remains one of the most undervalued stocks in our portfolio.
Yeah, and it's not only demand too, right? Jim Farley, one of the biggest things he did when he became CEO was focus on profitability. They're restructuring in a whole lot of different regions. India, most recently, is one example.
This was something, go back and forth with Jim, because I'm always trying to figure out what's going on. Now, I had said to him that that India had lost $2 billion in the last 5 years. So that what are you going to do here? Because you said you're going to get out of all the unprofitable areas, and he does. I thought the stock was going to go up on that because if you put pen to paper, you see that they've lost a huge amount. You add that back in, you see how much Ford can make. They kept the information technology group there. These are substantial changes in the way Ford is operated. And that's why the people say, oh, Jim, well, that's why the stock went from 6 to 13. Wrong. I think the stock is going to 18. It's going to back to where it was 10 years ago because Farley's getting out of the bad markets, doubling down on the good markets, and has the right lineup. And it's the only thing that's keeping him back is a lack of supply of the technology he needs to meet the demand. I'll take that side anyway, any day.
All right, Jim, it is Friday. We are heading into a weekend. Anything you're looking to next week? I know Costco reports. That's a big name for the Charitable Trust.
We'll do a pre on that. I continue to wait for the buy point of even Lilly at 329. If that goes back to 318, I think I've done a lot of work on the Alzheimer's. It has some impact. I'm watching drugs for bottom, and I'm watching industrials for bottom. Again, there are people I know on Twitter will say, well, Cramer always does his flip-flop. No. And I want to explain that for a second. I'm going to give people a heads up. Okay, so if you think that the data says that September 17th has been the beginning of a 20-day period of bad, that's looking at the calendar, okay? And that's just data. So then if you see that, and then you talk about it, and then people anticipate it because you keep hitting it, then it does change the way that it may turn out. If I stay the same, saying ignore all the selling that's ahead of it, ignore all the negativity, the numbers say this, that's what a moron does. I am continually asked to be a moron in my mentions column. I am continually asked to say things that and being criticized for being inconsistent when the facts have changed. And I welcome them because I will do the opposite of whatever they say. The collective lack of wisdom in my mentions column from the people who hate me is so uniform that it's almost as if when I was tracked in the dumb class in 4th grade, I am sympathetic to their view.
All right, let's leave it right there for the show today. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you on